Pleno is an automation platform for carbon projects. So we are helping carbon projects, which is projects who are generating carbon credits, which I know there's a lot of words there. A real example is that you might see in a lot of forestry projects, right, where they plant trees and then they calculate what are the carbon sequestration or what are the carbon removal from these projects, and then they can sell this to companies who actually buy the credits.
Welcome to The Executives, the show where we navigate in the intricate world of executive leadership, exploring strategies, insights, and personal stories of successful professionals shaping the global business landscape. I'm your host, Majid, and today we have someone who originally comes from Bali, Indonesia. He has 7+ years of experience in carbon management with companies like Zalando, Celonis, and PwC. He is the co-founder of Pleno, which is an automation platform for carbon projects. I am happy to welcome Nura. Hello and welcome to the show, Nura.
Hi, Majid. Thanks for having me. Really excited to talk with you today.
It's a pleasure. I think you're the first guest for me from Indonesia. So so let's talk about the more important thing first. What do you think of satay and rendang?
I like that. Let's start on the most important stuff, which is the food, right? I mean, yeah, I think for some of you who might not know, Indonesia has a lot of good food, but most of them are also quite spicy.
Yeah, spicy food, good food. I mean, I'm a huge fan of satay. Satay and rendang, two things. Nasi goreng, mee goreng, good stuff. So you're thinking like we came for a serious discussion, but this guy started with food. But thank you again for your time. So let's start with, can you kindly tell us more about yourself, about who's Nura and what are you doing?
Let me start. Just a very simple, background history about me. So as you mentioned, Majid, my background is from Indonesia. So I grew up there, and then I studied in different places. I'm always interested in the world of sustainability, environment, but also business. That is why initially I decided to study my bachelor in Australia in terms of sustainability management. And then I move on to Germany to do a master's here in business. And in my career, as you mentioned as well, I've been always working in the field of sustainability. But other than that, that's only one part of Nura, right? Another part, I'm interested in anything related to technology, not just very technical details. So I'm not very technical, to be very honest. But I'm more interested of how can we leverage different technologies for various use cases. So I'm a big fan of reading histories and looking into how different technologies can support humanity in general.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. That's super cool. So our topic of discussion today is revolutionizing sustainability, harnessing blockchain and machine learning for environmental assessment. Some big words there, blockchain, sustainability, machine learning. Because when I met you for the first time, I remember we discussed and I was like, interesting, very interesting startup that you have. And I see you're combining three of the biggest topics that we are actually solving problems, like you mentioned, for humanity. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. What inspired you about blockchain?
What inspired me? I'll give probably a very personal story, maybe similar to others as well. I got into knowing about blockchain or crypto in some cases back in, I think, around 2017, 2018. Why? It's due to the potentials of becoming rich, right? As a lot of people join in initially, like, oh wow, you can actually make tons of money out of it. So that's kind of like my naive introductions to the world of blockchain. But then throughout the years, just by doing investing, learning about the market, what really inspired me or pulled me in is, I think, the last couple of years where we learn about the world of Web3, right? A lot of different applications of blockchain. So not just the crypto side of it, but really of exciting use cases from NFT, as you all probably have been following that as well, in terms of organizations. I tried to join into DAOs as well, into various projects. But what really pulled me in is how blockchain can also be applied to sustainability. So that's really like the moment where, okay, I need to learn more about it. and potentially build something on it as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I will ask the $1 million question. Did you become a millionaire like a lot of people from?
Well, unfortunately, not yet, I would say. As we all in the space, we believe in the long term, right? It's not the short term thinking, but yes, hopefully in the long term.
It's all about hodl. It's all about holding.
I agree.
Cool, cool. So tell us about what inspired you, because Pleno is first. Let's understand what exactly is Pleno and what do you guys do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Pleno is an automation platform for carbon projects. So we are helping carbon projects, which is projects who are generating carbon credits, which I know there's a lot of words there. A real example is that you might see in a lot of forestry projects, right, where they plant trees and they calculate what are the carbon sequestration or what are the carbon removal from these projects, and then they can sell this to companies who actually buy the credits. And Pleno would like to streamline the whole process. Why is that? Because similar to any industries, the process is very complex first. It's also very expensive due to manual calculations and a lot of estimations. But also now in the last years, some of you might have read in the media as well, questions or critics are coming up if that it is actually true. Like how high is the quality of these projects? Are they actually doing what they say they're doing? So there's like a lot of lack of trust in the market. So at Pleno, we would like to create transparency, but also make the process more efficient to generate these credits.
Interesting. That's an important problem. I see that as a big problem to solve, So what was the inspiration behind this? Like, did you just wake up in the morning and you said, let's.
Uh, yeah, that's an interesting question, right? I think as a lot of founders out there as well, there's no such thing as the light bulb moment. That you actually learn about problems and think about solutions or tinkering about it days or even years, right? So my inspirations comes in because of working in the field. So the topic that I'm working before is all about helping companies to reduce emissions, meaning that they need to measure, calculate, and try to or do something to reduce it, right? But at least so far until now, there are a lot of emissions that cannot be avoided, meaning no matter how hard they try, there always be carbon emissions in their company or in their supply chain. So they need to purchase carbon credit to offset. So I know this problem's a lot. I really want to do something about it, but I don't really have the technical know-how, let's say, especially in terms of the technology, right? So it's always there at the back of my mind. And last year, so 2023, I actually started to discuss this topic with my best friend, which is also my childhood friend and now my co-founder, Nino, who is a software engineer with a background in AI and machine learning. And yeah, we just start talking about it as a weekend, discussions and see how we can go. And long story short, he said that he can build the solutions on it, and we decided to work on this problem. And Plano started around end of summer last year.
Interesting. And since then, how does it aim to revolutionize the carbon credit process? Like, because this is what you guys involved with.
Mm-hmm. We are very naive. Let's say when we start building this, we thought, okay, we can solve everything at the same time, right? But of course, now we're really looking into it in very details. Our vision is still the same. Like we would like to make the process more efficient, but also more transparent. But we need to start something small, right? So the think big, start small. So for now, for example, we have developed a solutions that can help project, especially it's called nature-based projects. So everything related to nature ecosystem.
Mm.
How can we integrate satellite data, for example, also then use machine learning, which I will explain a bit more, to really estimate the potentials of this project. So not just like, coming out of the air and saying like, this is the estimated carbon emission remove, but we actually doing tangible calculations and also traceable calculations to prove this.
Mm-hmm. And what is a nature-based ecosystem?
Yes, I'll give a real example, maybe in the category of carbon projects out there. There are two types. One is more nature-based, so everything related to nature, right? I mentioned forestry a lot, but also others. For example, we're working with blue ecosystem, such as mangrove, seagrasses, or also farming. There's a lot of now regenerative practices. If they can prove that they can actually reduce the emission, they can also create credits. So that's one part of it. And the second part of the global carbon market, there's also the technical or engineering solutions. So maybe if you read about the news, I know I don't want to go into technical, but direct air capture, which means that there are companies building machine that can actually absorb carbon emissions out there. So we're really focusing on the nature part for now.
Interesting. And because you said that you guys also utilize machine learning, right? So how does Pleno utilize machine learning to automate and improve carbon forecasting?
Yeah. So when we are diving deep into the topics, what we learn is that there's so many data already out there, right? As in any industry or topics out there, we're actually overwhelmed by different data. And in the specific use case, what we're doing, so for example, we're using various satellite data, satellite imageries, and then we process them directly looking into the specific different, let's say, data point that we want. Why is this important? Because previously, project like this might be done by consultancies that needs to get data from one sources and maybe also get scientific article papers from different sources. And then, of course, they try to combine this into one calculation in Excels, right? How are we doing differently? Because we're automatically pulling this different data. And then we're also creating a model how to actually bestly calculate this, let's say, calculations. Not just that, also validating, meaning comparing, right? Like if we say that this is X, we can actually quickly look into other projects that the results are also the same. That's what we are developing in our solutions.
And because you also get data from other providers as well, right? So is it like commercial data or is it open source? Like, is it free to use or?
Yeah, good question there, Majid. So there's a lot of different types of data. One is open source data. A lot of open source data are available out there. So we are really also using this. But of course, it's all about processing it, right? So meaning that we process this open source data. And then to improve the quality, we are also then, depending on the use case, we'll also use commercial data. I'll give you a real example in terms of satellite data, meaning that to get a higher resolutions, this you need commercial data. Then of course you need to pay for it. But in terms of that technology, luckily we're supported by the European Space Agency business incubation. So we got the expert and also the networks to work on this problem, let's say.
Interesting, because it's a lot of data. Like if you just start taking the carbon footprint of one thing and expand it to 10, it becomes like exponentially the data grows as well, right?
Yes, exactly.
Because I was one day I was just sitting at the end of November and me and some of my friends were discussing, and I was like, this November has been really cold. Towards the end, if you remember, there was snow in Berlin.
Right.
I have
right.
not seen that much snow in Berlin, in or actually in Düsseldorf as well, or Bremen in November. And my friends were like, no, that's normal. That's how it is always. I'm like, okay, let's ask Google, you know. So we looked up for the temperatures like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and then temperatures of this November. So from last year, it was 7 degrees colder. So it was like -7, and last year it was like 2 degrees or something. So 9 degrees difference, which is a lot. You know, so
Definitely.
and when you see the weather of December, for example, it was also very weird weather. Like it was sometimes it was like 18 degrees, and it was some days it was like -10, and it was sunny, and you know, like you're like, huh. Well, you couldn't figure out what you should wear. But
Definitely.
coming back to our topic, so because you also are utilizing blockchain technologies, right? So in what ways do you think blockchain technologies actually enhance the transparency and reliability of environmental data on your particular platform or Pleno?
Yeah. I think you mentioned the perfect keyword, the environmental data, right? So if you compare this to the financial industries, for example, how blockchain actually come in is that they provide transparency, right, to a ledger, what people already knows a lot, and then also about transaction, who's actually debiting what and who's also crediting, who's receiving, and so on. In terms of environmental data, in a lot of cases, this is still aggregated or still, let's say, centralized, or even a lot of paywall, right? It's not easy to get a lot of this data, which means is that the industry tend to trust, right, to get the result based on certain sources. We don't really know where is it coming from sometimes, or how trustworthy it is, and we basically use that data. So at Pleno, initially our vision is to provide all this different data directly on chain, meaning that to provide the transparency for people who are or who's interested to look into different types of data, for example, carbon projects. But I'll give a twist here. So with this vision is here, okay, we're gonna revolutionize the carbon project market and so on. But when we're actually talking to the customers, so our customers is really companies who are doing the project. Let's say they're planting the trees, right? We know that, or we learn that that's actually not actually the pain point. They don't really care where the data is stored and all that. They just need to have an efficient process, make it cheaper, and also make that more accurate. So now we deprioritize in terms of like data storage, but what we're looking at, what we're developing is more in terms of validations. So to deep dive on that, meaning that, let's say in a typical process, there needs to be an audit, right, to make sure that if the data is correct or not. This also happened in the carbon market, which is there's third-party audits. So big companies are doing this audit, and we learn is that actually if we decentralize this, make have a lot of people out there who have the expertise, they can also be an auditors or validated. They come into our system and also validate this, which means that it's cheaper, but also data is more transparent. This is currently how we developing one part of our solution with blockchain.
I think the reason why these companies don't really say that where the data is stored is important, because there is no personally identified, PII or personal identification information. For example, imagine if it was my date of birth or your date of birth stored on somewhere randomly on in every country, it would be high risk. Imagine my name, my date of birth, my nationality, my passport number, and so on. That's why I think, because of the nature of data, it's okay that it's stored wherever it's, because it's not about identifying a single person. You cannot identify from what's the temperature or how much carbon footprint or something, like who's Nura, for example. There is no connection. I'm sure there is still some sensitivity involved, but as compared to fintech, I think my personal opinion is the data is less sensitive. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, good point. I agree. The data is less sensitive. Why? Because a lot of this data is data. It's very, how do you call it? It's very intangible sometimes, right? Even the concept of emission. If you go back 100 years ago, now we're talking about this, people are asking like, what do you mean? Like, what are you calculating, right? So this is what we need to make sense of. So we have more flexibility in terms of that. But the point being is that we also need to create more, not just trustworthy, but reliability. Why? Because a lot of monies are flowing in, hundred millions of dollars, or even now becoming billions of dollars coming into the space. So we need to make sure that this financing are actually creating the impact that it should have been done.
Interesting. And can you share with us some key sustainability strategies that you have implemented so far?
Sustainability strategies. Yeah, sure. I always see this as there's a lot of ways that people can actually be more sustainable. I mean, people, companies, organization, countries, right? Usually, if you look into it, it's either time or resources or money. And by time, I mean, for example, you can be more active in your communities, right? Some people demonstrate, some people are making a lot of different new initiative. Or if you're working in a company, for example, then you can, be more vocal or take the lead, do a lot of projects and so on. What I would like to mention as well is that sometimes we are bogged down, or we're thinking a lot about the micro stuff, like recycling, doing something at your place, buying secondhand furnitures or what have you. That's good. I'm not saying it's bad, but we also need to do something on a macro level, because that's where the big impact is, right? So that's in terms of time. In terms of resources, again, if you are just a customers, you can use your money basically to create changes, right? You buy on stuff that you think are more sustainable or maybe have less impact to the environment, Or if you're a company, then you also invest on the technologies or the solutions that create a more sustainable impact. But if people really ask me, I think what I took or what I learned from a lot of people is that if you really want to see the change, you need to build this. So yeah, we need more sustainability entrepreneurs as well, because that's the best or the fastest way that you can create changes.
Yep, and that's something I've seen. I have some guests in sustainability as well that I'm talking with, and I was realizing that when last year I was attending so many conferences, I saw a lot of SaaS, a lot of AI, a lot of enterprise software startups and so on. But I was really missing startups that are doing something for the planet. It was very hard. Like I could count literally, like maybe I met like 10 startups, 12. And I've been to like a lot of conferences, bits and pretzels, like I was attending all the big conferences. But it is surprising to see that there are not many startups, and maybe the reason is that SaaS has a bigger return, so the investors give more money there. Because if you compare also the investment size, right? That's also key because you need to survive as well. You need to fund the startup. You
Definitely.
need to hire people and so on. Because yes, if you're doing individual something, like if I'm doing something individual on my level, I can just start using reusable water bottles, something very simple. Doesn't cost me anything. It's something simple. But if I want to talk about macro and something big, then I need to have the financial support. uh, and I this is the first time I'm hearing about the European Space Agency has a special center, for helping startups, which is so super cool. We need more initiatives like that as well. And like you mentioned, it is key that we need to look at macro. And now coming to talk about what exactly is the impact of carbon on climate change, the question of the century.
Yeah, I think the word carbon or climate change has been thrown out there a lot in news or social media, right? Sorry, but if we look into the first principle, right? So there are various different gases, you can call it, that actually have impact on climate change or global warming. Why? Because they create this greenhouse gas effect, meaning a lot of gases. So carbon emission is one thing, but there are others as well, like methane, nitrous oxide, and other as well. And they create this layer basically in the atmosphere, which then trap the heat on Earth instead of like the heat going out when it's reflected by the sun. It's actually trapped on Earth. So that's, let's say, the first principle why everyone is talking about reducing carbon to actually solving global warming. So even the word solving, sometimes it's overused. What we need to do now is to reduce, because if you look into the history, I think since industrial revolutions, right, the growth of like this greenhouse gases in the world has significantly increased, that naturally our world cannot balance that. That is why you hear all about like neutral, offsetting, balancing. It comes from this equation, let's say.
And because there are people like you're building a startup which is trying to do something. So what other natural projects are people doing? Because if I go to my friends who are not from sustainability, who have never worked in sustainability, who are working in a normal job, a bank or somewhere else, and if I sit with them and I will ask them, do you know that there is this project going on? They will not know. But you're involved in the field, so you know more than me or probably a lot of my friends. So what other natural projects are you seeing that people are doing in, for example, climate change?
Yeah. So in terms of natural projects, since the last years, there's so many different projects popping up. But I think to your questions for people, that how can they contribute, is both either like from their career, right, if they do it on their end, or also personally, meaning if you're investing, you look into what are you investing. I mean, you can talk about companies. Now there's like a lot of green bonds, or even in crypto. So maybe going back to blockchain, if you're investing in crypto, you can also look into which one is actually, now there's a lot of like this green crypto initiative, which is tokens or protocol that are more environmentally friendly. Or like Ethereum now goes to proof of stake and so on, which have less carbon emission impact. But in terms of other or the globally projects, you can look into like what industries are you looking into. For example, today I was talking to someone who's actually doing wastewater treatment. Right, wastewater treatment actually, because of they doing certain parts of it, like part of it is actually natural instead of like using a lot of chemicals or a lot of machine. They will now have like this, I don't know the details, but different kind of algae and different plants
Mm.
that automatically can absorb emissions, which is something that you don't really think about, right? Or I met people who's doing seaweed processing. There's so many different things out there, but the best power we can have is to talk about it, raise awareness. And if you really want to walk the talk, invest on different ways to to create sustainable changes.
Interesting. Because you mentioned invest, are we talking about investing in startups, or are we talking about generally investing in ways of our own, like myself? Like if I come to you and say, you said that invest, what do you mean by this word invest?
Mm-hmm. Well, it really depends, right? I mean, if you are on that level that you're investing in a startup, you're definitely open to happy to talk as well. But in other ways, right, you can look into. I mean, most people now are doing any sort of investments, either through ETF or to anything. You can already look into did the things that I invested actually have a positive impact, or you can look into ESG scoring,
Mm.
right? And that is one way to look into it. But second, for example, if you're directly looking into companies, now there's also a lot of like different ways. So if I, want to buy this stock compared to other stock, a lot of like the studies find if the company is putting a lot in ESG, the long-term value will also increase. This is not a financial advice, but
Mm.
you can look into a lot of this. Even like BlackRock and others are also doing this analysis as
Mm.
well.
No, I mean, because like, for example, there are platforms also, right, where you can invest
Yes,
in
exactly.
startups. Like you don't need to be an angel investor, but you can pitch in 100, 500 euros or so on whatever you can invest. I don't remember the name of those platforms, but they are crowd funding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Crowdfunding
Mm-hmm.
platforms. So those are also good. I mean, and if 1,000 people give 1,000 euros, that becomes
Mm-hmm.
10 million.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a lot of money, you know. So, and if you start investing that in startups and you give each startup a million, that's 10 startups. You know, I know there is a probability that the money might, but there is always risk with all investments, regardless wherever you inject your money in. Um,
Definitely.
so, talking about the people who, because we talked about partly about how can people actually invest, so to say, but how can the general audience also support fighting, like, for example, climate change and its relation to the economy?
Mm-hmm. In relation to the economy, I think if we look back again to ourselves, right? We are all consumers. No matter who you are, where you are, you're probably spending your money onto something. And I mean, this is just my personal opinions or what I've been reading in the history as well. That you know, customers have the big power to change the world, right? Meaning now, if you see electric cars, why are we seeing so many electric cars out there? Maybe in one thing that yes, the car manufacturer want to change that, but mostly it's because people are buying that, or like vegan food, vegetarian, and so on and so forth. So there are of course a lot of like trailblazers, so people who are starting all this journey. But I mean, even including myself, right? I mostly not on the activist front as well, but I still think about it, what the money I'm putting in. So to your questions, I think that's have a huge impact. And also talking to people, right? Let's say um, learning about what's the impact of your behavior. Like if you're buying this inside of that, you can tell your friends, oh, because there's an impact of this. And of course, it should be backed by science as well,
Mhm.
because I know now there's a lot of like wishy-washy belief based on social media. Like I don't know, take an example of nuclear is bad, or many examples that people are putting it without knowing the background, right?
Mhm.
Sorry, I know that's a very long answer.
No, no, that's fine, because like, for example, I remember some I think it was like before COVID, I would see everything was starting to come in plastic, everything like in supermarkets, and I was like,
Hmm.
I take these vegetables home. One, it's too much for me, like they have these big packing, like half a kg or 1 kilo packs. I'm like, it would be nice if I can just take like one or two of this and, take this home without this packaging, which I will probably take the vegetable out from, and it eventually now is, at least in Germany, I've seen that already at the supermarkets, this has happened. So if you want potatoes or if you want something else, most of the vegetables you can get, like, just pick up how much you want, put it in a
Mhm.
bag, and then you can get it weighed at the counter. And they have these reusable bags that you can use again and again. So which is I think small initiative, but I say that's the drop effect. Or if a lot of people start doing the same thing, it actually becomes a big impact. So it converts from being micro to macro, and it's not much
Mhm.
change that we have to do, and it actually makes my life easy. Why? Because I don't have to get rid of that plastic again, like, because then there is no more plastic involved. So I just take the vegetables, wash them up, put them in the fridge, nothing to get rid of, maybe just that tiny little sticker, but that's okay. That's, I understand, that's for like quality control or something else. But
Definitely.
interesting. To be honest, there is no answer that's too long. We love answers. Bec- so, and because sustainability itself or environmental conservation is a huge topic, and you're working very closely there, and you are at the forefront. You're using blockchain, you're using machine learning, so these are the forefront of technologies right now. How do you see the role of actually technology evolving in the field of sustainability or environmental conservation?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll start with the sustainability itself, right? We talk about a lot about the environmental part, but there's also the social part of it, which sometimes people don't really talk about, right? There's this, this debate about developing countries compared to developed world. I mean, coming back from, from my own origin in Indonesia, I can say that a lot of people in Europe care more about our forests, let's say, compared to our people who are living there close by, because they I mean, they haven't internalized or they haven't calculated the impact, right? It's all about for you to survive and so on. So sustainability has to balance this as well, environment and social. And in terms of technology, actually, this is more as an opportunity, right? We talk about data a lot. I think that's the boring part of it in terms of like actually put data into whatever we talk about, environmental data, social data, and so on. But second, what I'm really, let's say, passionate also what we're doing in terms of financing, right? How can we actually use technology to allocate the financing to actually stuff that really matters? So we talk about projects before, or maybe others such as a cleaning up project. For example, now we're working on a project with one blockchain project. It's called Beach Token, where they actually issued tokens for people who are cleaning the beach if they can verify or prove them, right? So this kind of ways where we can actually help people and environment at the same time, and using various different technologies to create changes. That's more on a bigger scale. But of course, there's many other use cases. If you want to talk more engineering stuff, now we see, energy reductions, electricities, renewable electricities, and all that, or chemicals. So many different things. But personally, I'm more into like the digital technology
Mm-hmm.
opportunities.
Interesting. I mean, I'm also a guy who's like, let's first go digital. Let's stop using paper. We have something, we can store the data online. Let's use those technologies because that already is very powerful and very good. And it eventually also saves us a lot of money. Like if
Mhm.
I start writing every single, for example, this podcast, if I start making like a folder and I start putting the question and answers in a folder, I will be one folder will be filled with, let's say, 5 episodes or something. I'm not doing that. Why? Because I don't see the need. It's basically I'm trying to keep it as digital as possible. Or imagine someone basically starts getting this transcribed or starts printing everything out, like reading
Mhm.
this as a book, so it becomes a lot of paper wastage. And then once they
Mhm.
read it, they shred the paper. Oh yeah, I'm done, I don't need this anymore. So people need to start also thinking about how can they utilize like technology into their daily lives. So Now,
Definitely.
talking about Pleno and your life as a founder, let's first see how is your day like. What do you do on like a walk us through a founder's day.
Well, I'm quite new, Majid, as you know, so probably every day changes a lot. Um, uh, as much as I want to follow like the stereotype, if you go wake up 5 in the morning, do your cold shower and so on, I'm not there yet. So for me, at Pleno, for example, there's me and my co-founder, right? I'm really focusing on the business side or the go-to-market. So my day, I spend a lot talking to customers, either our current projects that we're working with or doing outreach out there. So try to talk to as many people as possible in a day or in a week. So that's what I spend most of my time with. But second is also then working on the details. Especially for us, it's all about understanding the science behind it, right? So we have a team to support us doing that, learning about like journal articles. There's always new findings that how can we use that into our product. And other than that, I try to always have some times to read or follow the latest technology. Spend a lot of time in Twitter. I used to spend a lot of time in Discord before, but now, yeah, I have limited time for that. But I'm trying to at least have some time to be open and see what's going on out there from Twitter, from books, from different blogs as well. I'm also a big fan of reading Substacks and blogs.
Interesting. And there is a new trend in the market. It's you sleep at 2 and you wake up at 2:30. Just
Okay.
just kidding, just kidding. Don't take that as serious advice. It's just a joke.
You mean an afternoon nap, right?
Yeah, like I sleep at 2 and then I wake up after half an hour and I'm done.
Well, now there's a lot of people doing this. I follow them as well, like this yoga nidra thing, right? Where you can close your eyes for 10 minutes or 15 minutes and you feel very refreshed,
That actually
which could
works.
really help.
That works. Like I remember one of my friends. He's from Vietnam. He used to do that after lunch. He would just go to his chair and sit down and like sit 15 minutes. He would say, "No one should disturb me." But after that, he would wake up and then like slowly start working. And
I
at
agree.
first, I would be like, "Huh, what are you doing, man? Let's just go finish this 15. You use this 15 and finish early and go home." He's like, "Majid, this helps you recharge your energy." I said, "Okay, I will give it a shot." So I started doing that as well, and it was really, really good. Like at that time, we were still going in the office, so we only
Mm.
had the chairs. So, but when the whole home office came, I would have like finish my lunch in like 45 minutes, and the last 15 minutes, I just go and just take your eyes from the screen, no mobile, nothing else. Just
Yeah.
otherwise, we are right now. Technology is good, but technology is also like causing us health issues. For example, we are just sitting the whole
Hmm.
day in front. Like I see a lot of my friends whose life is the following: they wake up in the morning, start working, like developers or product managers, designers, or something in the IT field, and then they shut down their laptop and then they turn on their phone, start like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever it is, and after that they say, okay, let's entertain ourselves. Okay, Netflix. So that is, I think, very dangerous for us. And I might be wrong, by the way, but that's a personal opinion. I say that's also sustainability, but of your own health.
I agree. I mean, it's also like the social, I mean, both health, body health, or also mental health,
Mhm.
right?
Because if you just keep staring at the screen the whole day, it's actually not a good thing. Because I tried this approach where they said that every 50 minutes, go 10 minutes outside, you know.
Hmm.
And if you're an executive, or if you're a founder, or if you're a senior manager, that's almost impossible to do every hour, because one, you're
Hmm.
swamped with meeting after meeting after meeting. You're jumping from one Zoom call or one Google Meet to the next one, 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 and then you realize, oh, I was supposed to go out at 10 in the morning, but now it's 5 p.m. So, and I have seen that. I've talked to a lot of people, and I see the same problem in all of them, who are like, Majid, we want to do that but we cannot,
Hmm.
because time doesn't allow that. I mean, we talk about work-life balance, which brings me to my next question. As a founder, how do you balance this work-life balance? Because founders' life, they say 24/7, 365 hustle.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you more from like at least my limited experience, right? So now I'm becoming full-time founders around less than 6 months, I'd say. But in terms of my life changes, it changes a lot, right? Of course, in terms of schedule, I'm mostly working. I mean, my co-founder as well. He's actually next door now, working 7 days a week, right? We basically do our job almost every day. But then I think you mentioned about time, that we control our time, meaning we can decide which one is actually more important and which one is not. Like I can just go out now, have coffee with someone because they could be potential investors or could be a potential customers, whatever. So in terms of timing, it's all about what do you want to get out of it, right? Yes, you need to work a lot, put a lot of effort, but I think now there's also a lot of like moving away from this, just like the hustle culture, just putting times and times. So if you're not working on the right thing, you're also just wasting the time and energy that you spend.
Mhm. Interesting. And because you're someone who has experience, so you were mid-management, senior management from your work experience, right? 7 years. There are a lot of people who are similar to you, and they have this factor, or as I like to say, they're scared to start this, entrepreneurial journey. And you did it. Now you're a full-time founder, right? So how or what advice would you give these guys? Like whenever someone comes to me, I just say, start something, man. Start small. I don't know, like figure something out, but do something small. So how do you? Because you did that. I mean, I'm still working, right? I mean, I'm a guy who's working. So as a guy who moved from a stable job, how did you convince yourself to make this transition of becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's a good question to reflect, actually. I mean, from my personal experience, it doesn't happen overnight, right? You kind of build it through years that you want to do something. So for me personally, I think I do a lot of like thinking, a lot of reading during COVID time. It's like what a lot of people do as well, and there where I learn a lot about. I mean, I follow people like Naval Ravikant, for example, who's talking about creating your own value in work, life, and so on. And that I started to do various different things outside my job, which is that I used to have a blog, for example, started writing about sustainability, blockchain, started doing different communities involved in like DAOs and so on as well, meeting many people, talking to many people, and actually you got a lot of energy from these people who started business or investing in companies. And then you kind of like, maybe I can do that as well. Like you always have this doubt, right? Doubting yourself. And for me personally, like last year we did an incubation program where we just like, okay, try it out and then see how it goes. And we actually then came out as the first team out of around 40 entrepreneurs. So we got funded as well. Then we look at my co-founder and say, okay, wow, now things are getting serious. Like either we do it or not, right? So that's that kind of moment. So to your question, actually the best way to start, if you want to look into it, maybe you can also find different programs. Like if you're in, I mean, I think no matter where you are right now, there's so many incubation program or like this boot camp that you just try it out on your weekend time or on your evening time. And if you like it, you can do it and see it. But if not, then there's nothing to lose, right?
Hmm. Yep. I mean, at the end of the day, like you have to take the first step, right? You were working, and then you started with this program that you mentioned, and now you're switched towards full time, and you have funding. Is the amount you raised, is that public or is it like confidential?
I think for now it's confidential. So I mean, we didn't raise a lot, right? As a typical from an incubation. But I think what I would like to share as well, I mean, as a non-German or someone, coming from outside, initially I'm quite scared as well because wow, it looks so complicated, right? The process and all that. But then we passed that, and what we learned actually, a lot of people don't know, even a lot of people in my network or my friend, is that in Germany or in Berlin specifically, there's a lot of support, right? You can get government support, for example, who's actually paying you some salaries. Or like in our case, we got grants. So like we got grants from various organizations. So there are ways to find this or unlock these resources if you are looking for it. Like no one will just like, pat you in the back or connect to you on LinkedIn and say, okay, I want to give you this amount. That you need to find it. And what we learned, yeah, actually in Germany or in the EU, there's a lot of support to start a company.
Interesting. Is there like a specific name? Like I know there is something from the Chamber of Commerce in Berlin, or actually all Chamber of Commerce of each city. They have like a special unit, which is, I don't know what they call it in Berlin, but it's meant for startups. And because we are also coming towards an end, I have this one special question of if there was like, what advice would you give businesses, who are looking to integrate sustainability into their core operations? Now you come from a very sustainability background, so you are able to give advice, for example, to traditional uh, mid-sized companies.
Yeah, so the question is that how a company, especially a medium company, can actually integrate sustainability. So I have two different types of answer. One is more like geeky or technical answers. There is a process called materiality analysis. So you can also search that in Google, which means that you can identify what kind of topics out there. So there's tons of topic, right? From environment, emissions, waste, into like social diversity, equality, community, and so on, and also the governance. Then you can look into this list and then you prioritize them, meaning based on the impact to your company or also your company impact towards them, right? So then you can create a very simple metrics and you can prioritize. So to make it more tangible, what type of things that you need to focus. So that's a geeky answer. Let's say the more everyday answer is really to focus on what is the drivers, right? If you know, or for maybe some people knows that a lot of the companies now in Germany or in Europe, they need to follow certain regulations, regardless if they care or not care about sustainability, they need to follow that. So this is one of the drivers usually. But the second drivers is really then about what is the visions of that. Like, are you using it to make new innovations, which already happens now a lot in the engineering world, or using that to attract customers, a lot of e-commerce or fashions and all that. So there's a lot of different ways. So it's either like the risks, like regulations, or the benefit, like the visions, what you want to get out of it. So yeah, the short summary, there's a lot of different ways, but really to focus on certain things or certain part that you can actually make change or create impact on it.
Interesting, because I think, like you mentioned, there is one side coming from as pressure from the regulatory side, that you need to do this. But there are companies also who want to do this. I mean, it would be nice if we lived in a perfect world, but unfortunately we don't, and we need to fix our own problems that we created.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look into like the history, I'm talking about history a lot, but people who actually make these changes are also unlocking a lot of like new markets, right? Meaning, I mean, you can see Tesla or other companies as well who are actually making sustainable changes, and they create a new trend in the market, and they get a profit and also a financial benefit. So sustainability is sometimes seen as a cost, but you can also use it as an innovation to actually use that to increase your revenue.
True. I mean, Tesla has everything is electronic, right? I was seeing a series on Netflix. Don't remember the name. They actually converted a regular Tesla, like a Tesla S, Model S, to being a hot rod. So basically, that car ran on gas. I mean, I was like, damn! It looked cool, by the way. It looked really cool. I mean,
Nice.
I was very intrigued, so to say. And they gave it like a look where the engine was like coming outside, and they had like the hood was like this, So imagine the engine is coming out like this, and it looked super interesting. Cool.
Oh, okay.
What is the meaning of Nura in Indonesian?
Yeah, maybe I need to explain a bit. So even my real name is not Nura. There's it's called Ngurah. So there's G in the middle, like Vietnamese name also have Ng, like Nguyen. But Majid, it's too hard for people outside my country to actually say it. right? So when I go out of Indonesia, I need to change it a bit just to simplify. But now, when I'm talking to someone from the Middle East or an Arabic background, they usually laugh. You know why? I don't remember if when I met you as well, but because it's usually a girl's name. So when I say this, that's like, okay, wow, Nura, and you're a guy.
Nura in Pakistan, it's normally Noor is a name, but Noor can be
Yes,
for
yes.
guys as well. I know guys who have the name Noor and
Ah,
also girls,
okay.
so it's for us a general neutral name. But how do you say it?
Interesting.
Like I'm curious now.
It's very hard. If you can say it, I'm happy to invite you for lunch directly, but I'll say it. So NG is like Nura. That's like a ngu is this vocal voice that you have to move
Like
your voice on
Moo
it.
or Nu?
No, it's both are wrong. So NGU.
Okay.
So ngu.
Nu.
Ngu.
Nu.
Okay, I think we need a couple of hours to do that, Majid. We can do that over beers.
No, I mean
But
I would have cola then.
it's very hard. So I don't mind. So I just need to change a bit.
Cool. No, again, thank you so much, Nura. No, I mean I will call you Nura. It's simple. So
No
it
worries.
was very insightful, and it was we talked about some really important points, and thank you so much for sharing your expertise and experiences with us. Would you like to say something as a closing remark for our audience?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for listening. I hope this could also create impact for you in any ways. And if you like to connect with me, it doesn't need to be with my company. I'm always happy to discuss in any topics, but of course related to sustainability and technology. So yeah, you can probably find my profile down down there somewhere. And yeah, thanks again for listening.
Cool. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the executives. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your network. Until next time, this is Majid and Noora signing off.